Ricciardo will drive for Mercedes in 2023. Or is it all just a rumour? Let's find out. The 8-time Grand Prix champion is still without a job for next year, 1 month after McLaren made the shocking announcement that Daniel Ricciardo would be released at the end of the 2022 Formula 1 season, despite having a contract for 2023. And all of a sudden, he now seems to be an option for Mercedes for next year. Where would you like to see Ricciardo drive next year? Let us know in the comments below. He isn't a front runner for any of the 4 open positions on the grid, even though 2 of them are with teams where he had success. At this point in his career, a man who has won for Red Bull Racing was never going to return to what is now AlphaTauri. But Ricciardo did seem a logical target for Alpine once it became clear that Oscar Piastri, who was supposed to replace Fernando Alonso, was displacing Ricciardo for McLaren. However, considering that he chose to join McLaren after working for what was then Renault for 2 years in 2019 and 2020 on a salary of $25 million, Alpine appears to have made the decision to never go back. That leaves Williams or Haas, the latter of which is thought to be interested in replacing Mick Schumacher if it decides not to give him a 3rd year with either Daniel Ricciardo or Nico Hülkenberg. However, a Haas contract would be contingent on Ricciardo's willingness to join a team that has never claimed a victory in a Grand Prix and must field cars thanks to a technical alliance with Ferrari. Such a step currently seems unlikely. It's amazing that a driver of Ricciardo's standing and reputation would have so few options, and realistically only with teams in the bottom 3 of the standings. But given the circumstances, it's not so insane to think that he may decline a racing drive offer from Haas or Williams, should either come up. Ricciardo shouldn't worry too much about the financial aspect though, because McLaren never denied that he had a contract for 2023. They were willing to pay him handsomely to skip driving one of their cars in 2023. Although the details of Ricciardo's compensation are unknown, it will be sizable, and McLaren CEO Zak Brown has already stated that his team will not obstruct Ricciardo from competing on another F1 team or other series next season. Ricciardo doesn't have the mentality of any port in a storm, wanting to remain on F1 grid at all costs. Instead, it's all about choosing the right course of action, which is why he might be willing to take a non-racing role. It's difficult to see a driver who's been a prominent figure in Formula 1 for the previous 10 years being content to watch from the sidelines, and Ricciardo is unlikely to see himself doing that. Unless it's with a team that might just give him a route back to the front of the Formula 1 grid, that is. So, who might be better than Mercedes, the best Formula 1 team during the last 10 years? Ricciardo has made it quite clear that he wants to continue competing in Formula 1. The 33-year-old is adamant that he still enjoys Grand Prix racing and would ideally like to participate in 2023. He will, however, make a sacrifice if necessary next year. "The truth is, I'm keeping every option not only for next year but for the future," he said recently. "I still don't know what next year looks like. I do want to race." There's obviously many talks or thoughts about next year and beyond that. That includes a prospect of taking a break from Formula 1 with the intention of returning in 2024, or perhaps taking a reserve driver job. In fact, when Ricciardo claimed he was keeping all options open, he was directly asked about the potential of serving as Mercedes reserve, even though Lewis Hamilton has stated he believes Ricciardo is far too talented for that position and should be on the starting grid instead. It would take a lot of patience to try to become a Mercedes reserve, possibly encouraged by a desire to peek behind the curtain of the team that's consistently defeated him in Formula 1. But the chance to participate in driving simulations and tyre tests at a championship-winning team would keep him mentally sharp. Additionally, he might be required to fill in for one of the regular Mercedes drivers if they're unable to do so. Furthermore, since many teams share their backup drivers, Ricciardo might even get an opportunity to fill in for a driver elsewhere. Mercedes customers include Aston Martin, Williams, and funnily enough, McLaren. Most importantly, while Ricciardo is on the sidelines with Mercedes, he'll be able to consider more choices for 2024. If he wins over Mercedes' internal judges, he may have a chance to compete for a racing drive in 2024 if Hamilton decides to leave the sport when his contract expires at the end of the upcoming season. Although it may seem unlikely, Mercedes would be able to compare Ricciardo to regular drivers like Hamilton and George Russell to gauge how well he fits within the group. Ricciardo would at least be considered for one of the greatest seats in Formula 1 if Hamilton decided to retire at the end of the upcoming season. Given the two subpar seasons Ricciardo has had at McLaren, there's zero possibility that Mercedes or any other major team will give him a meaningful look soon. However, becoming involved in the inner workings of Mercedes and getting behind the wheel, even if for a test or in the simulator, would give him the chance to prove to the team that the old Ricciardo speed is still present. He might see it as one last daring chance to take a shot in a car that could win the championship. You can see why it could be more appealing than driving around in the midfield to extend his career and top up his already healthy bank account, while hoping a struggling team's pace will substantially improve. All of this is presuming that a contract is being offered. Do Mercedes want Ricciardo then? It's a reasonable question, however there might be room for a reserve because Nick de Vries probably already has a seat in a team elsewhere. For Mercedes, which has historically employed younger drivers in the reserve position, Ricciardo would be a completely different kind of driver. Ricciardo is far too experienced to take part in the 2 FP1 excursions that teams are required to provide rookie drivers during the season, which is another issue. Mercedes, Williams, and Aston Martin have used de Vries in that capacity. Currently, Mercedes can use its Formula E champion, Stoffel van Dorn, as its stand-in for the F1 season, and that arrangement will come to an end in 2023 when Van Dorn joins the new DS Penske Alliance in FE because of Mercedes' withdrawal. Mercedes would be wise to at the very least give Ricciardo's willingness to take the reserve position some thought. There has apparently been some communication between the two parties over the prospect. At the very least, it would receive a superb reserve driver option with a track record of finishing first, and at the very best, it would be an answer to the dilemma of who to sign once Hamilton departs. We're not sure if Ricciardo is truly interested in taking on a role like this, which would entail travelling across the globe to watch Grand Prix weekends, though he could be social media gold for Mercedes' promotional side while doing that, and lots of time spent at the team's Brackley base without the assurance of getting to race in Formula 1. Ricciardo has emphasised that he's willing to show patience and that he won't make a snap decision, but he's also made it clear that when it comes to racing, F1 is his exclusive priority, and he has no plans to compete in any other motorsports, even if passing over 2023 in favour of 2024 and beyond is the only way to stay in F1. Look, I've certainly accepted that if I'm not to be on the grid next year, I'm okay with that, he said after the Italian Grand Prix retirement. I've accepted that I'm not going to do everything, or my management team isn't going to do everything to be on the grid if it's not right or doesn't make sense. This season has been challenging, and if I'm on the grid, I want to know it's a place I can enjoy and feel like I can thrive, an environment I can thrive in. It might be wise to pursue a reserve position with Mercedes, even while some would think it's embarrassing. It's something Ricciardo should think about if he still wants to drive a car that can win races and even contend for the world title. The argument against him doing so is that there is a remote chance that it would succeed, because it would depend on Hamilton leaving Formula 1 at the end of the following season, and Mercedes not making another decision. Its high risk and high reward characteristics are due to this. It makes sense to try and stay on the grid and perform well, given doubts about his ability to handle current generation of F1 cars, as doing so in limited machinery would at least partially dispel worries that his greatest days are behind him. But should he get access to one, a Mercedes reserve role, the high-stakes gambler's path would probably lead nowhere, but it might just give him a chance to beat the odds and return to the top of the heap for 2024. The problem is that the odds are strongly stacked against the latter, and it's pretty much win or bust. Would you like to see Ricciardo join Mercedes as a reserve? And would he get a seat in 2024 if Hamilton were to hang up his boots? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. We'd love to read your insights. Leave a like to wish the Honey Badger good luck, and we'll see you in the next video.